since we are gathered here to have the advanced Excel session, I prefer starting the session with the one of the most used function in Excel, which is called VLOOKUP, and we will not just cover the VLOOKUP, but I will also tell you that how we can use the VLOOKUP in VLOOKUPs, how you can combine the VLOOKUP with some other functions like match, if errors, because that's sort of the requirement. If you're working day and night in Excel, then probably you might have seen that you need to be an expert in these sort of the formulas, how to club the formulas basically to crunch the data and to do the proper analysis on that. Instead of using the different column helpers and then doing it one step, second step, third step, fourth step. So we can, combine all the steps together if we have this capability of combining the multiple functions together and make a big formula, complex formula. Okay. I want to just before I begin, the basic thing which I want to understand is that from all of you, all of you are familiar with the use of the dollar sign, right, in Excel. Of course, this is advanced Excel session, but still I like to ask you. We all know that, right? Why we use the dollar sign in Excel, which is basically to lock the rows and the columns, right? If you don't understand, if anyone has any problem in understanding this, let me know about it, because this is the very important thing. If we are not aware of this, then you just can't be as creative in creating the formulas as one has to be, because many times we have to go and lock the formulas from changing, which Excel tends to change uh, uh, as it's by default nature. So I hope all of us know about that. We're going to cover quickly VLOOKUP. We're going to cover the VLOOKUP with the match, and I'll also go and talk about the train first of all, and we will go and see the combination of the VLOOKUP and the match functions, and then we'll move with the conditional statements where we will talk about the if conditions, right? So far, let's go and cover these things. Maybe one hour or 1.5 an hour we may require on it. So the first thing is that VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup. Okay, and I'm comfortable in Hindi, English both. So if you have any question, doubt, and you prefer Hindi, please do ask in Hindi. The purpose of this session is to make sure that when you go back home, you have your all the doubts clear. Okay, and also you have that sort of developed that tendency, the zeal, inside you, that yes, Excel is not that boring. Excel is not that difficult, right? So we start with the vertical lookup. Vertical lookup, we call it VLOOKUP. We all know that, and this is a lookup function, right? We use this to basically gather the information, or I say that to look up the information from one table to another table. Now, when I say one table to another table, it doesn't mean that you have only two tables. Well, you can have three tables also, you can have four tables also, you can have five tables also. There's no limit. We can go and look up the information uh, not just within two tables, but even in the multiple tables, right? If you know that how to use the VLOOKUP. So the first thing is that we should understand that when I say lookup, so what does that mean? Now, there's in company there's always a database which provides your all the employees database. It's a complete employee database. Maybe it's not employee database. Let's say it's some sort of a list of employees with their names, with their IDs, with their date of joining, with their salary package, with their departments, with their reporting manager, right? Generally, MIS team prepares keeps the this data with them. HR is again another department which keeps all these records, right? So if I have a data, let's say it's in the same sheet right now, the concept remains the same even if you have this in a different workbook. I'll tell you about that also. So I just create a dummy data here, and for example, we have these employee IDs here. Okay, and now let's say we have their name. Okay, so I just give it a name test1. So we have these people, and let's say we have their IGP result, and we have their maybe some product score. Okay, so I'm just going to fill this. I use this rand_between function, random between. For those who do not know about this, anytime if you need to create a sort of dummy numbers, you are doing some sort of analysis, some testing. Like right now, I just need some numbers. So one option is I go manually and fill all the cells, and I write 22, 30, scorecard. Rather than that, because it's just a dummy number, what you can do is you can select the entire range. Okay, go in the formula bar. You know that all the formulas work in like you select the cell and then you go and say equals to. But this function is not going to work on a single cell. I mean, because I have to print the numbers in multiple cells. So I will select the entire range. I'll go in the formula bar equals to random between. So this is your random between. Okay. Then you give the range, the short, smallest number and the largest number. So if I say that my small number has to be, let's say, 10, and the highest number is going to be 90, this means that when I press Control Enter, this will give me the numbers between 10 and 90. So I can set up my range. And remember that I said Control Enter because it's not a single cell. Okay. So this is also called a volatile function. This is I'm giving you additional tip. Okay. So you will hear from me such sort of the unique and very useful tips in the middle of the session. So basically rand between is we use to generate the random numbers. Okay, generate random numbers. And one thing you have to make sure is that you have to first select the range where you want these numbers, then go in the formula bar and type in the function. The most important thing is that you have to press Control Enter. Remember that, right? Otherwise the function will not work. And why this is called a volatile function? There are a lot of other volatile functions also. We'll do that later. Okay. So I mean, you should know that like VLOOKUP is a lookup function. Other functions also, match is a lookup function. So these are called the volatile function because what happens, they keep on changing. They are never fixed. They're never permanent. Like you see, the moment I sort of do any calculation 2 plus 2, have a look here. See this. This changes, right? Because the formula is there. So every time you press enter, when you write any formula in any cell, these functions go on the recalculation, and then this random between again generates a new number. So for us, if I have to show you some, we have to do some practice, I'll make sure that these numbers should remain fixed. Otherwise, they keep on changing, and we will have a problem in when we are trying to find out the answers, because answer keep on changing. So I first of all make sure that I should have this paste value. Okay, I hope all of you know the paste value. Copy, Alt S. This is a very basic thing I'm telling you. So just to get rid of the formulas, to make sure that we have a constant applied, a fixed value applied, so we use the paste value. Now there is no formula, you can see that. Okay, so now I have IGP, I have product, and let's say I have a department also, and let's say I have so we have MIS, Ops, HR, Finance, for example. These are the departments. Okay, and then let's say we have designation. So just keep it like, let's say, profile. Okay, so let's say this is my executive. This is my senior executive. Again, senior executive, manager, manager, and then executive, and Okay, now we have a data here, right? Let me give this bordering, put this in the center. Now guys, imagine we have this a complete database, right? It may have 15, 20 columns, doesn't matter. A formula works the same way, whether the data, is you have small data or maybe a big data, it doesn't matter because if you know the formula will give you the results, right? So there's nothing as such that if you have a big data, then you should have a different approach in terms of writing the formula. Formula remains the same. The only thing is that your calculation may take some time, right? Otherwise, you can practice on the small data, and then once you go back to your office, you can implement that on your those big data points. Okay. And same way, of course, you may have imagined that we may have here 5,000, 10,000 different number of rows. Now my point is that we have our own employee IDs. Okay, like we have 77, we have 22, we have 78, we have 899. Okay, maybe any ID, let's say, which is not available, for example, might be missing in the main database. Now VLOOKUP is we use when we have some columns to evaluate, like this is your own table, this is my table, right? This table is a main database which is given to you maybe by MIS department, or you are maintaining it, or maybe by HR, right? This can be on other sheet as well, so we'll come to that point also. Generally data is always on the another sheet most of the time, right? But just to understand, so that we can see the results directly and we don't have to shuffle from one sheet to another, I'm just keeping this data here. Okay, first we'll understand the simple concept. Now what if you have to get the department, for example, right? So I'm sure you must be knowing this, that it's a VLOOKUP. The first choice has to be a VLOOKUP, right? So we can use the VLOOKUP. I'm not telling you anything about the VLOOKUP right now. I'm just walking you through this. I'll not explain much here. We'll uh, go and talk about the advanced thing, which is how to use the VLOOKUP with other functions to make sure that we can have a dynamic function and we can get the results the moment I change just the headers. For example, if I change this department to profile, your function should automatically give you the profile and not the department, right? So just a quick revision. VLOOKUP has four parameters. We have lookup, we have table, we have column number, and we have a range lookup, right? You know that the lookup is the one you are trying to find out. So this is my lookup, this one, J11. And then, because in J11 I have my employee ID. Then you go and provide this table, you select the table, entire table, for example, right? We'll also talk about that. Is it mandatory to select the entire table? I mean, can I just not select my table like this? Can I not select my table like this? I mean, you should know the reasons, right? Right now I'm selecting the entire data. So what is the next thing I have to do after this? If I have to find out the department of this employee ID, who will tell me what should be the column number?
K11.
5.
It has to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
Yeah.
K11 is not the column number. K11 is your cell where you're writing the formula. So what happens? Maybe you don't have understanding about the VLOOKUP. So let me quickly explain this. You see, it's very simple. Forget about the VLOOKUP. If I just simply ask you that, without writing the formula, tell me the employee ID 77 department, how will you search? Obviously, you will start searching here, isn't it? Nobody will go here because this is a different header. You don't need the name or the IGP header to find out the employee ID 77. You will always go here. So same way, VLOOKUP will go here, because when you say that VLOOKUP, you have to pick up this 77. VLOOKUP will ask that, okay, so where I'm supposed to find it out. And then when you say, this is my table, by default, VLOOKUP always picks the first column, okay, by default. So VLOOKUP will start going here, okay, and it picks up the 77. Now, once VLOOKUP finds 77, your search will stop. It it never moves forward, right? Because it has got its employee ID, right? Now, once it got the employee ID, now there are so many things. Now, VLOOKUP would like to know from you that what do you want in return? You want name, IGP, product, department, profile. So as I said that, even if you search this without writing the VLOOKUP, what is the next thing you will do? Now you are on this row. What is the next thing you will do? Obviously, your mind will, go and find out the department. Now the column wise, because you have to find out the department. So you know that your mind has recorded this word department, and then once you are here, you keep your cursor here just to make sure that you're not lost in this data, because this data, let's say this 77 is on the 1,000 or maybe 2,000 row, right? So just for our clarity, maybe we just go and give it a color so that we remember that where we were, and then we start finding out that where is our department. So what we are doing, we are finding out the column number of our table. Which column number? The column number of department. So you start finding from here 1 2 3 4 5. That's all, right? So same thing, you have to provide the VLOOKUP, because VLOOKUP doesn't have its own mind, right? VLOOKUP needs the parameters. You have to supply those parameters, and then it will work. So when I said column, which column number, when you this is the one, the column number, right? This column number basically meant for the department, okay? Because we need the department. So here you will write 1 2 3 4 5 6, whatever the column number of that field in your table. So that's how it is. So we pick up the VLOOKUP here like this, and then we go and provide the table like this. You see that, right? And then we give the column number called 1 2 3 4 5 because I want department, right? And then comma. Do you want exactly the same match, or do you want the approximate match? Approximate match we generally don't use, but it has its own importance. It has its own advantages. I'll tell you about that later. But right now, most of the time, maybe 99% of the times, you will go and say always exact match. Okay. Now, some people write false, as you can see, for exact match. Some people write even 0. It's one and the same thing in Excel. Okay. So I go and press enter. We have the answer. A very important fundamental you should know, since we are talking about true and false. Excel never treat true and false as text. Okay. For example, somebody is not on mute. Please go on mute. Now, if you ever have to add two text values, please go on mute. If I go and write here A and B, for example, and I tell you that, can you add A and B? What will be your answer? You'll say no, it doesn't make any sense because these are the text values, right? Now, what if I say that, can you add true and false? Some of you may say that, oh, why are you adding the text values? You'll get the error, isn't it? But you won't get the error. That's one of the interesting thing and important thing. Please understand, true and false are not text. They are Excel values. True is always 1 and false is always 0. So when you add 1 plus 0, you have 1. When you add true, let's say again, true and true, you're actually adding 1 and 1, which means 2. Okay. These calculations are very useful in Excel in some of the cases, in some functions. So you should know that. I'll explain you in the SUMIF and the COUNTIF functions. So my point is that when somebody has written here 0 or false, actually it means the same thing, because for Excel, false is 0 and true is 1. Okay, so don't be surprised that, oh, there is some new VLOOKUP developed. Okay, so I keep this as 0. Now, I hope we all know that, how to freeze the table, because if I drag this table right away in the downward direction, you will have these answers coming. But let's say instead of this 300, I say that I want employee ID 23, for example, 23. You see that it doesn't return me the department called MIS. However, 23 is there. We all can see that. So what is the reason? This is a very basic thing. The point is that
the cell swapping.
Sorry?
Because you didn't freeze the table, maybe the
Yeah,
cells shifted.
absolutely. Because you see, for those who may have missed out this, who do not know what is happening, I'll quickly show you. You can press F2 and you can see that your table is highlighted, right? We all use F2. F2 is a shortcut key which we use in formulas to see the cells, which are a part of that formula. So your formula always uses cell, you know that. One cell, two cell, three cell, it depends. So if you want to ever check that from where it is coming, you go and say F2. It expands this, right? Now, many times it happens your formula, over this supersedes this value. Now I'm failed to see this value, right? I can't see this, though the cell is highlighted. So there is a very nice trick to do this. You select the entire thing, the formula, and make sure you align this to the left side like this. Now when you go back and say F2 over here, you see that you start now getting here the values. Now 77 is VLOOKUP is checking in this table, which is code. We have the answer. So when you press F2, you see your table started moving because Excel always increments the row, right, in the downward direction. So your table actually keeps on changing. So you see that the table is moving. In fact, every cell will change. This is also moving. This is moving. This move is a good for us because our employee IDs are moving, right? But if you go here, then again this is good, but this is not good. Why this is not good? I'll tell you. Because you see, you are able to get the answer of 899, but I still say this is not a good formula because the reason is that your table should never change actually. It should remain fixed because you never know where is this ID located in the main table. Now for you, it's a chance, it's just, you can say you are fortunate. We are fortunate that 899 is still in this table, which is why the VLOOKUP is getting you the answer. But what happens if you go here and now you try to find out the 23? Now you will see the bad results because 23 it has left above, right? This is the table. So if I would have fixed this table would have looked like this, and I would have got my value. But because Excel keeps on incrementing the row of your formula, your formula will keep on moving. So I'm just going to fix this, right? So this is just a quick thing on the VLOOKUP. We will now actually go and talk about the advanced use of the VLOOKUP.
Ajay, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, can you just repeat why did we select 5? Like, because I guess I missed 5 comma
Okay.
then yes.
Okay. I'll explain you. Okay, no problem. So this is a very basic part of our VLOOKUP. But I'll explain it since you have asked for it. Of course, if anyone doesn't know, that maybe for me, I'm not saying basic from my perspective, but generally from audience perspective, I'm sort of going a little fast in the basic concepts because I'm meant to be here for the advanced session. But that does not mean that if we have some problem in understanding any sort of maybe a very normal thing, we shouldn't ask. Of course, you ask me because the purpose of this session is to make sure that you, once you go back home, whatever you have covered in the class, you should be able to implement it in your practical scenarios. Okay, so no problem at all. Some of you may not be knowing that.
Thanks.
I use the VLOOKUP because I want to find out the information. Which information? Well, employee database has so many fields. It may have your salary, it may have your home address, it may have your, you know, background check, healthy, non-healthy. It may have your date of birth, date of joining, whether you take the cab facility or not, what is your uh, in hand, what is your provident fund, there are a lot of things, right? I don't need that information. I just need maybe father's name, mother's name, department, manager, or maybe IGP score. That's it. So you have a complete database available with you which is provided to you, or maybe you are maintaining if you are a part of that sort of, as I said, that a team. Generally it is called MIS team, Management Information System team, or maybe HR would be the second person who can give you the entire database. Now I want to find out couple of information, few bits and pieces of that information from that main database. Like I just want the department for my these employee IDs. Okay, I want to just go and check these employee IDs. So the first thing which I will do here is that, because I want to find out the department and I don't have the department, I'll just go right here, department. I don't have the department, right? Now, instead of me going and searching this using Control F, find and say that, okay, so where is my 77? We all use this find, right? Control F. So you say find, it finds this 77 here. Then you go here and then you say, okay, this is the department, and then you copy and paste it here. Again, then you do the same stuff, you select the entire table. You say Control F. Now you say 22. Just imagine if you have to find out 100, 1000, 2000 such IDs out of that 10,000 employee IDs, you will never go and use Control F 100 times, right? We can't do this so much of, the manual work. And if you end up doing that, it will take your entire shift, entire day, maybe more than that. Maybe then work from home, late night hours, just for this ridiculous thing. So that's why Excel said that, okay, I'm going to give you a VLOOKUP. You just go and search the IDs or whatever it is. Make sure, one thing you make sure that whenever you're finding the information from the other table, those tables should be able to interact with each other. Now, for example, if let's say, just imagine I don't have an employee ID here, I have a name here, Ajay, Aman, Rishi, all that. And here you don't have those names. Then how VLOOKUP is going to find out the information? Forget about VLOOKUP, even you can't find out the information because there is no common entry available in both the tables. So one column has to be there which can talk with the other table. So that one field, that one column we have here, which is employee ID. This employee ID and this employee ID, we can go and get them interacted with each other, and basis that we can find out the rest of the information. This is the first thing, the first rule in the VLOOKUP. You must have one common field. Okay, so when I say VLOOKUP, I say that I want to find out you 77. Okay, many people, what they do when they learn a VLOOKUP, they don't go here. They know that 77 is there, they go and select the 77 here in the main table. No. Why no? How do you know 77 is here? Oh, because I checked it. Okay, so what if you have 10,000 IDs here and you do not know where is 77? Right now this is small data. So let's say if your 77 is on 1000 row, are you telling me that you will go and check like this one by one, and when you find the 77 in that 1000 row, you will select that? Well, if you have that much of time, if you're that much, that sort of capability, then why you are using VLOOKUP? Because ultimately you have already found the that ID, which is manual thing, right? So no, we don't touch the main data. I do not know where in the main data this employee ID is available. I don't know that. That's why I'm using VLOOKUP. I want you to find out this ID for me. So once you said that, VLOOKUP picks this J11. Now you have to supply the table. Okay, so if you press comma, it takes you to the next parameter, which is table, right? So table is highlighted, means you are on the table. Now you have to tell the VLOOKUP, where is my table? Okay, so when you say where is your table, you select the entire table like this. We'll talk about this after, once we understand the VLOOKUP, that why I say entire table, why I don't say that select the table like this, or maybe why I don't say like this, that select the table like this. Right now you make sure that you select the table like this. So once you have done this, VLOOKUP will pick up the first column, the left column, automatically by default, and it starts finding that employee ID. Okay, so once it finds the employee ID 77 from here, Search any formula which you write, it always searches from top to bottom, never bottom to top. And if it is a left to right formula, I mean, if it is across the columns, the search always starts from left to right, never right to left, the way we write. Okay, so after 77, you need to now tell the VLOOKUP what is the column number of that header, which is department, because you need the department. So then you start counting here 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you write here 5. That's why. Because if I have if I found the 77, what is the next thing for me to do? Tell me. You want test 6, 39, 43, am I a senior manager? What do you want? Well, I want department in this case. So naturally you have to tell the VLOOKUP that wherever you are from that side, you have to go on the fifth column of this table. Remember that. This column has five columns, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, actually 6 columns, but department is on the fifth column. So that's why you write here fifth. Fine. If it is, let's say, IGP, then I go and write 3. Why 3? Because this is my IGP. Let's say I want to find out the IGP. So 1, 2, and 3. So you provide 3. And then exact match. I want exactly 77. I don't want 75, 73 number, which is approximate match. Why do I need that? I want exactly 77. If you're there, good. If you're not there, no problem. You return me hash NA, right? Which is an error. So we go and write here 0. So 3, 5, 6, 7, whatever. This parameter is called column index number. Column index number of your main table. Okay. So here, depending on what you want to find, once your search is done, you go and write the column number. So if I have to find IGP, I go and provide here 3, because that's what is the column number in this table.
Hi, like we are providing this column number manually, but if there are like 30-40 columns, is there any shortcut?
I'm coming to that, don't worry. We'll talk that in just a while.
I have one more question, Ajay. So what if name was first column and EMP ID was second column? Then how this J11 will be looked up in main database?
Repeat that.
I was saying, what if name in the main database, if name was the first column and EMP ID was second column, then how J11 will be looked up?
I'm coming to that. Once I'm done with the VLOOKUP,
okay,
I'll come back to all of you and I say that now throw your questions on me. 90% of the questions I bet will have been solved. Okay. So first thing, this is why I have used the column index number 3 as somebody asked me. Okay. 3 because I want to find IGP. Now what if you have profile, for example? Then what will you do? After 77, you have to tell the VLOOKUP shift to the 6th column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have to provide here 6, right? Now, it's obvious question that can we not automate this? I mean, every time if I change a header, do we have any sort of that magic that if I change the header, down the line here, department should come? That would be fantastic. Yes, it can be done. We will do it, right? But right now, you have to go and put this manually. Now, the next thing is, you have to freeze the table. I hope all of you, if anyone doesn't understand how to freeze the table, why to freeze the table, please ask me, then I'll explain, okay? I'm going to freeze this table, dollar and dollar, right? We will freeze the row because you know that what happens if I don't freeze. If I just drag this, see what happens. Now, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. Why this is not coming? If the entire formula doesn't work, I think we might be unhappy, but we might not be that unhappy as in the case that, some of the formulas are working and some of the formulas are not working. Half of the data is coming, half of the data is not. Then it leaves you nowhere. You get so confused that how is it possible? If I'm able to get this value, that means my formula is right. Here also it's coming. So what happens here then? That's the main thing we now need to understand, that it may happen half of the data is coming and half of the data may not come, which leaves you in this sort of, dilemma that I just can't figure it out, because if formula is not correct, then it should have not worked in any of the cells, but it's working. So I don't know what to do. That's very confusing. That's more confusing than, as I said, that if you have a entire data showing you the errors, because then you may say that, oh, maybe I don't know the formula, I'll go back and ask somebody. So the point is that this keeps on changing, right? Because if you see the F2, Excel has this, the golden rule, it keeps on incrementing the row of every cell. I hope, since nobody has asked me, so I believe all of you know that, right? So we just make sure that the table should always be like this, because the table keeps on changing. So what you are looking, it may be slipped out, because you never know that 23 in the main data is where, and in your data it is where. Like 23 here is on the first row of that table, but here it's on the last row, right? So this may happen. So we just go and freeze the table as we did here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to freeze this like this, 8 and 18, because this is my table row number. 8 is my starting row and 18 is the last row. So if I freeze that, which is I have put dollar, now this will not move, and now you have your answer. And you can see using the F2, we got the value, right? So we have got the value and now it is fine. Okay, now let's now talk about the other thing, that why I have selected the table like this. Why not like this? Or maybe as you said that what if the name is here and the employee ID is there, right? Now you see that if I just go and let's say I have here employee ID. First of all, understand this. Here, let's say I want IGP. Now, when you use VLOOKUP, looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table. If you read it, you may not be able to understand this, right? But now when I'm explaining you, and then you come back and write any day you write VLOOKUP, you will remember that what exactly it is saying. VLOOKUP says that whatever you are looking up, what we are looking up? We are looking up employee ID. Why employee ID? Well, because I have only employee ID with me. And in the main table also I have employee ID. Right? As I said that, so naturally my first choice is employee ID. So VLOOKUP says that if you select the table like this, for example, you can challenge me, that why can't we select the table like this? Or maybe from maybe like this, maybe like this. Why? Why it has to be always this, in this way? The point is, if you select the table like this, for example, I'm changing the reference from B8, right? And now you give the column number. You want IGP, right? So the question should come in your mind. According to this table which you have selected, IGP is on which column? Second column, right? According to the Excel, this is a C column, which is 3. Should I use 2 or should I use 3? You will use 2. You will always go by your table columns, not by Excel. Your table may start from I column, so that I will be the first column of your table. For Excel, it may be, 7 or 8. It doesn't matter. So for me, my table is this. This is first, this is second, and so on. So since I need IGP, I will say 2. So I'll write 2, right? And then you write exact match. You press enter. Oh, why you're not getting the answer? What happens? What happens? Tell me. If I hide this just for a moment, okay? Let's say I'm just giving this white font, okay? Now I ask you, go and get me the IGP of 72 employee ID. Can you do that? Any of you? Can't do that. You will say, oh, this data is incomplete, Ajay. There's no ID here. How can I find it? So I say, no, you find it out for me. It must be in the name. I don't know. It must be in the name. No, it's not there. It has name. It has employee names. It doesn't have the employee ID, right? Then I say, oh, might be, check that A column. It might be there. Sorry about that. Just change the font to black. Then you realize, oh yeah, that's what it is. So the point is, there is a rule. The lookup you are trying to find it out. The lookup. It doesn't mean 77, 22, 78. It means what is the header? Employee ID, right? You will go by the employee ID. Employee ID should be the first leftmost column when you give the range, when you select the table. It has to be the leftmost column of that table. Now here, you haven't provided that because here B is that leftmost column. So as a rule, VLOOKUP will fail. So you have to go and provide the table like this. A18, F18. So that A becomes the first column because A is my lookup. That's why. That's why this formula, now it will work. Okay.
But Ajay,
Just 1 second. Just 1 second, sir. I'm just going to tell you. Maybe you will have your answer. Now, the point is, just imagine if I have a table in a different pattern. Okay. Let's say I have a table like this. Who knows? Maybe the name is here and employee is here, right? It might be possibility. Now, what if I say that you have to find out employee ID? It's very interesting. See that you have to find out employee ID 45 and 66. Let's say just 2 IDs. What do you want? Department. Now what will you do? You say you will look up, pick up the set 45. Now what will you do? Oh, my trainer said that it has to be the leftmost column. But my trainer also said that the lookup has to be the leftmost column. Now lookup is employee ID, but you have made the name as a leftmost column. So in other words, in very, if I have to explain you in layman terms, employee ID should be the first column of your table जो आप main table select कर रहे हो. So this will be my first column like this. There's no point of using the name. If you use the name, employee ID आपका second column बन जाएगा, which is wrong. Because C3 to G3 में जो lookup है आपका वो पहला column होना चाहिए. That's why VLOOKUP आपको बोलता है कि looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table. मतलब मैं जो value ढूंढूंगा मैं वो सबसे leftmost column में ही search करूंगा. तो VLOOKUP को आपको सिर्फ table देना है. It automatically knows that in this table, this 45, it has to search here, the leftmost column. And now, sorry, first I provide the lookup, and now I provide the table like this. Okay, and then जो भी हमें चाहिए, let's say I need IGP. According to this table, your IGP is on the second column. Remember that, guys. Make sure you shouldn't be writing here 4 because it's on the D column, as I said. That's the Excel row, Excel column. We are not bothered about that. And also make sure you don't say that IGP is my third column. It might be a third column for this entire table, but for VLOOKUP, the table which you are supplying, that is starting from C. So if it is starting from C, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4th column, and this is 5th column. So if I need to write the column number of IGP, it is going to be 2, not 3, because this is my table, right? So you're going to write here like this, 0. And of course, then you can freeze the table and you can drag this way. If you start the table from here, again, you will get the error. Now the next question comes, what if I have to find out the name then of this employee ID? Well, you see, if you want to find out the VLOOKUP, using the VLOOKUP, the name of this employee ID, the first thing you do is you select the employee ID. the next thing you do is this has to be the first column of your table, right? Now table always moves left to right, you know that. You can't move it in the reverse direction. Why I can't move in the reverse direction? Of course I can, see this? But the point is, if you go in this way, automatically table will make the B as first column. You can see here B. So in the B3 to C13, the lookup will be on the second side of this, the second column. It will be the second column. However, employee ID has to be the first column, right? So it doesn't matter. If you select the table like this, I know you will never do that now, because you will remember your trainer has taught you that lookup should always be the first column, right? So maybe then you say, okay, no problem, I'll make this first column, but now from here I shift my this range to the B column. That's not how Excel works. See, I'm going to shift it back, but ultimately because B comes first, so your B will come first. B will appear here instead of C13 to B3. Formula will always be like this. The first half, the column will appear first. So ultimately your approach was okay. Your thought process was okay, that okay, let me keep this as first column in selection and then, reverse it. But ultimately when the formula returns you the, that range, in that range, your employee ID, which is on the C column, will be the second column, because now in this table, this becomes the first column. So what is the solution then? Well, solution is VLOOKUP never works in the reverse direction. No, but what is the solution? Well, if it doesn't work in a reverse direction, you can't move it in the reverse direction. You can always move in the left to right direction, because that's the only way the VLOOKUP will keep this lookup on the first leftmost column of that table. Then what is the solution? There is just one solution. If you are totally dependent on the VLOOKUP, which is you shift this to the right side of lookup. Now you have a choice. If you are the owner of the data and you know that this cell is nowhere, this data is nowhere used in some other formula, you can just cut this from here. Cut and paste are strictly avoided in these such sort of exercises, because if you cut this from here and just imagine if this cell is being used anywhere in any other sheet, you'll find their error, a reference error, because you have cut it. So better idea is you just keep this copy here and just go and say Control V, so that if this cell anywhere in any sheet is being used, that will still be used. There will be no problem. And at the same time, when you have moved this to the right side of your lookup, you can now very easily say that VLOOKUP, just go and pick the employee ID and now select the table from here, right? Like this, and select the table like this. So this is my sixth column. You can see you get this Excel also help. 11th row and 6th column. I mean, what if you have 50 columns? So it's difficult to calculate, So when you select the entire table, Excel also pops up this, that you in this table you have 11 rows and 6 columns. Now if I change this to here, you see now it becomes 5th column. So it's good, right? So now I know that it's my 6th column of this table. So right here 6 and 0, like this. And then you just need to fix it. So I'll simply use F4. I hope all of us know the F4 is a shortcut key, right? To insert the dollars, right? F4. F4 is a shortcut key. If you know the dollars, then as nobody said that they don't know it. So I assume that you must be knowing this shortcut key also. But anyways, I'll to insert dollars, or in other words, to lock. To lock either row or column or both. It depends. So once we are done with this, I'll simply go and drag, or maybe Control C, Control V, and here also Control C, Control V. Right. This is the thing. Now, one more confusion. For example, I have to find out profile here. Okay. If I have to find out the profile of this employee ID, only the profile, remember that. Employee ID, select, go from here, like this. You can stop the formula here. There's no need to select this column. You're getting the point. Why? Because in this range, I have my profile header. As long as your VLOOKUP is able to find out your lookup and also the column number of your that header, which in this case is profile, everything is okay. It's cool, right? So I can keep my search limited to this G column also. But you can't do like this. You can't stop your search. You can't find out the employee ID profile in this table, right? It's common sense because you see. So what will VLOOKUP do after finding out the 45? If this is your table, how you gonna get profile? Because your table doesn't have that header. So what? How VLOOKUP is going to return you profile? It can never return you profile. It can only return you IGB product department. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that you make sure that whatever header you are using, that should be a part of a table. Otherwise, you will not be able to. Now, you just ask yourself, if this is my table, and now the next thing is I want to find out the profile, of this ID. What should be the column number? I'm sure when you try to write the formula in this way, you will get your answer back. No, this is something wrong, right? Because if you write here 5, for example, you still go ahead and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ideally, your table has only 4 columns. And you are telling that in those 4 columns, go and get me the 5th column, right? So it's like, in my country, I have 50 states, right? But I want to go to the 51 state. How you gonna get that? Not possible, right? So when you go and do that, which error will you get? #NA? No, not #NA. This is the issue related with the reference. We should have also good understanding of errors also, why the reference error comes, why the #NA error comes. See, #NA is probably the technical mistake. #NA can be due to the cell referencing issue if you have not logged the table, or it might be that it should be there because the ID you are trying to find, it's not there, so it says #NA not available. You can remember it in this way. But #ref always comes when basically you are trying to retrieve a cell which does not exist or a column which does not exist, right? So that's why it created a reference error, that I can't create a reference. Now what is this? Is a reference, isn't it? If I say equals to B4, this means that this cell is being referenced to this B4 cell, right? So that's why I said that if you get the reference error, make sure you check back your formula and see that there must be some sort of cell which you're trying to use which is invalid, right? Now it's like, if I go and say that I want to get, just giving example, if I say A1, I will get the value from A1, right? There will be no error. If I write something here, you will get here, right? But have you ever written this sort of formula A0? You never have, you never written this sort of formula, right? So this also returns the error, which is a different error, which is a name error. Okay. So the point is that, you don't have to be really brilliant in understanding the errors, but a little bit of knowledge is okay. So we have ref error, we have value error, we have divisible error, we have #NA error. Okay, we'll talk about that later if we will have the time, but otherwise, the point is that if the error is coming, there is something wrong. So now you know that if I will ever have a reference error in VLOOKUP, that means my parameters might be correct. The issue is not with the parameters. Parameters, I mean that the lookup and the table. It might be something else. So just go and check that the table you have provided and the column number you're trying to enter, is there any problem in that? Because 0 is okay. 0 will never create any problem, right? So I go and say 4 now, because my table has only 4, and in that 4, in that table, since I have only 4 columns, I can use only 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, not 5th, right? If I have to use 5th, then I have to increase my range, which is from F to this one. That's it. Now you will get your answer. And then we will freeze this and we will drag this like this. There is one more scenario. What if I give you two things to look up? Which will be your choice? Let me ask you. This question might be in your mind, because you never know, in your data, any ticket number also can be your lookup, employee ID can also be lookup, roll number can also be lookup, name can also be lookup. Who knows? Lookup can be anything, but there are certain rules for that. For example, I cut this here and I put it back here. Okay. Now my question is, I put the data here in the D column. Okay. Now I have employee ID here. Okay. So let me change this to here, 23, and this is my test 1. Now you tell me, if I ask you to find out the IGP or maybe department of these people, what should be the lookup choice? How will you do it? You have to find out the department from this table. What will you do now? Will you choose employee ID as a lookup, or you choose name as your lookup?
It should be employee ID.
It should be employee ID. Okay. What is the reason?
Because it's the first column.
No, it's not about the first column. Again, you are mistaking.
Because
What
of unique,
Unique employee
because
ID
of unique ID, because name can be
same.
repeated, but employee ID cannot be.
Well, that's a good answer because it is unique. So your lookup is unique. So now the point is, you said that lookup has to be a unique. Good. I'll explain you that also when you said that, because it's my first ID. No, it's not that. You don't decide by the headers of the main table that where they are located. You decided that which one, if I try and find it out, is going to be a unique item, is not going to be repeated in the main table. As she said that name can be repeated, right? But now I say that name can be repeated, but in my data, name is not repeating. It's not repeating. I don't care about the other datas, right? Maybe there I will, if I will have the name repeating, I will have a different approach. But here I'm saying, you all are looking at this data. Employee is also unique. There's no repetition. Employee is not repeating. At the same time, name is also not repeating. So I can use any. It's my choice. But you can say, but in future maybe name can come. Ajay is a very common name. Mahesh is also a very common name. So you may have one Ajay with employee ID 1. You may have other Ajay with different employee ID. So, well, of course, in that case, you will not use the name as a lookup. And I'll tell you why. For those who are still wondering that, so if lookup is repeating, why the VLOOKUP is not able to find out the values. But first of all, let us understand, in this case, I have a choice because my lookup both are unique and I can see that here. So first I go and use my lookup as employee ID, right? So I say this is my lookup. I decided to use you as a lookup. So if you decided employee ID to use as a lookup, well, as that gentleman said that because it's on the first column, so it should be my first choice, right? So you will go and say, you select the table from here now because this becomes the first column, right? And then department, where is the department? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Wow, nice, right? And then you go and freeze the table so that it should not keep on moving in the downward direction, isn't it? This is how it is. Now, maybe some other person says, oh, well, yeah, it's okay, but I can use the name also. Why not? So I can use the name also lookup. If I decided to use my name as a lookup, I'll make sure my table now starts from here, like this. That's the point. That's the point. You see, your lookup can be in the middle of that table, in the middle, that I'm talking about the column. Your name, which you're trying to find out, if you know it is unique, it can be in the middle of that table, middle column. If you have 25 columns, it can be on the 15th column, right? So we can start from the 15th. But the thing is, if you have to find out something which is coming before 15, maybe on the 12th header there is something, you have to move that 12 to the right side of that 15. Or there is another thing you can do. You just go and move that 15th, the middle, that column, the name, to the first. In that case, you don't have to go and work on the rest of those 14 columns, right? So maybe that's your because if you are the owner of your sheet workbook, I leave it to you, right? But we should know why this is happening and why we are doing it. Rest, you all have, you have a full authority to change the data the way you want it, so customization, creativity, it has full scope in Excel. So I start my table from here. But now when you start your table from here, don't do that mistake, because now in this table, department is not on the 5th column. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, and it's 4. So that means you have learned that according to the table, a column can also change. When I was selecting the employee ID as my lookup, my department was what? 5th column. But now it is not 5th, because my table starts from here. Why my table starts from here? Well, because I'm using lookup as name, and the name is here, so I have to make sure it should be my first column. That's it. And what if, let's say, the department was here? Then you were forced to copy that or cut that on the right side of that, because left to right the formula works. Simple. VLOOKUP doesn't work in the reverse direction. So we have to move those lookup headers to the right side of the lookup. So I go and write 0, we press enter. So in this case, both approaches are perfect. You got the point. So now I think I'm able to answer you when you said that because it's on the first column. No, it's not about that. It's about where is your lookup. If my lookup is name and I want to use it, and I know that it is unique, right? So I can start my table from here also. Let's say if you have a name here, I will go and start the table like this. And whatever is behind that, and I want that in the calculation, for example, I'll make sure that they should be coming here on the right side. Okay. Now, so lookup is a unique. Why we say lookup is a unique? Lookup cannot be repeated. Why we say that? I mean, there must be some reason, isn't it? Well, let's create a table which will have a repetition in the names, and then let's talk about that. So in this case, what is the best approach, or maybe the only approach?